Hey people, welcome back. I'm Indypride from Milk and Cookies Total War, and I want to talk about a recurring theme that I've noticed on quite a decent amount of my videos, specifically the subject of balance and whether something is broken or overpowered or not. I personally think broken units or mechanics and overpowered units or mechanics fall into separate categories, so let me explain that. Broken, in my opinion, means something that just isn't working properly, or that something is so strong it cannot be reasonably countered under realistic circumstances. A few examples in Total War's history spring to mind. When the Iki DLC first came out for Shogun 2 multiplayer, you could stack retainers to a point where monk units were basically heroes, with close to unbreakable morale and absolutely obscene melee stats. They just could not be beat in a melee engagement unless you also had the DLC or severely outplayed your opponent. In Total War Attila, the first iteration of Tagmata cavalry spam with the Eastern Roman Empire, I'm sure some of you guys remember those horrible days, it was completely broken. The unit only cost 800 gold and was basically uncounterable when spammed. It slaughtered enemy cavalry and infantry on the charge. Didn't really matter what you threw at them. Tagmata would absolutely dominate. These are pretty decent examples of broken units and tactics, and they were nerfed accordingly. In a similar vein, the word overpowered in video games means, to me anyway, given a particular set of circumstances or a specific context, something is too good or too powerful. Overpowered stuff can be countered, but you might have to invest too much into stopping it, thereby giving your opponent the advantage. And it can still take skill to use something that's overpowered and absolutely dominate with it, but something that's OP could probably be used by someone who isn't that familiar with the game and still do better than expected. So those are the definitions I'm working with. You can use whatever labels you want. But we've all been there before at one time or another, whether it was the hammer pickup in Super Smash Bros. Playing with our friends on N64, or getting chainsawed in half for the first time in Gears of War. It's something we have all said. Something bad happens to us in a video game, and our first thought is, wow, that's super overpowered. What am I supposed to do against that? So my last video was with a Chaos Dwarf mod by Sleepy, and I got a lot of comments about how completely broken and overpowered the Chaos Dwarfs are in the mod, how the Dreadquake Mortar was way too good, and so on and so forth. Now the Chaos Dwarfs might very well be overpowered in Sleepy's Total War Warhammer mod. I still don't have that much experience with them yet. I think I've played about 7 battles with and against them now, but I'm absolutely not arguing that it is some paragon of balance to be hailed as the holy grail of perfect Total War gameplay. But when you make the claim that something is overpowered, I think it's important to understand the context under which that unit was performing. So in the case of my first Chaos Dwarf gameplay, Gojira and myself were playing on 32,000 gold. That's literally 20,000 more gold than default multiplayer funds. Trying to judge army balance based off a 40 unit cap battle where both players can spam elites and buy whatever the hell they want is not a good representation of whether a unit is well balanced or not, or whether an army is well balanced or not. Most battles are fought at 20 unit cap with 12,400 gold, not 40 unit cap with 32,000 gold. If you've never seen the pricing of the Chaos Dwarf roster, or indeed even played with them, you might have a hard time judging balance with them. But pricing is an incredibly important component of balance in Total War. In a hypothetical world, say, you saw a dragon for the first time in Total War Warhammer, and you watch as it completely annihilated a black orc unit with a single breath attack. You might say, wow, that's really overpowered. But then you find out the dragon costs 8,000 gold and can only use 1 breath attack a game, and suddenly that doesn't seem so OP anymore, right? That player has used 2/3 of their gold on a single unit. That will surely make it more difficult to field a full, balanced army that can deal with many different threats. Take the Dreadquake Mortar again. It costs 2,000 gold, which is incredibly expensive for an artillery piece, almost as much as a steam tank. Has an incredibly low rate of fire with a 63-second reload time. It's incredibly vulnerable, can get charged by light cavalry or flyers, can have zombies raised on top of it, can get Arrow of Karnas from across the map as it just did in this gameplay, or counter battery snipe by dwarf cannons with a few chevrons for more accuracy and missile damage. It only has 1 artillery piece, so if that goes down, that's 2,000 gold down the drain in an instant. It only takes 1 magic missile or a couple of cannonballs to accomplish that. And none of these counter tactics are out of the ordinary for what a player would normally bring to the field with those particular factions. But beyond that, and what a lot of people didn't realize when watching that first gameplay, is that the mortar doesn't even track enemies in the way that cannonballs or the hell cannon do. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this before, but cannonballs actually do change their trajectory mid-flight so they can better hit enemy flyers and cavalry, for example. Mortars can't do this to the same extent. They can lead a target if you're running in a straight line, but if you pull back when they fire, they'll very often completely whiff their shell and miss the target completely. There's a ton of counterplay to the Dreadquake Mortar, and it's a very risky investment to bring to the field. Can it pay off huge dividends if your opponent completely ignores it? Yup. Welcome to Warhammer. Bring specific counters if you don't want to get destroyed by certain units. Will it be completely overpowered against the AI in the campaign? Absolutely. It's going to completely demolish them in the campaign. It's the AI, but that's where technology research and upkeep and unit pricing all come into play, where you can hide it behind late game tech so people have to work their way up to it and get the most powerful weaponry later on in the game once they've had to spend a lot of their time researching stuff, and make it cost a lot to buy and maintain once people do acquire it. Will it be very, very good on choke pointy custom maps and in sieges? For sure. The Dreadquake Mortar hits like a truck. We've all seen it now. It can kill a unit or two of Iron Breakers in a single shot. Is it good on open field battles on default funds? No. Not in my experience. Not when you know what you're doing against it and take simple steps to try and counter it. So what happened was, a lot of people saw the devastation it caused in a very specific context in one video on a huge map where absolutely nothing was done to counter it, and it performed exceptionally well. So they said, hey, this is overpowered. But all it took was one battle afterwards to start figuring out, hey, maybe this thing can be countered super easily, and in fact, it can be. Maybe 2,000 gold on a single artillery piece isn't such a good idea in a normal multiplayer setting. Again, I'm not making the claim that Total War Warhammer or Sleepy's Chaos Dwarf mod in particular are incredibly well balanced. The Total War series and other games are rife with examples of overpowered stuff. It does show up in our modding community for sure, and there's nothing wrong with calling it how you see it. I am saying, next time you have the urge to immediately claim that something is clearly overpowered, it is very beneficial to have an understanding of the map, how the unit was used, how much it cost, if the opponent did anything whatsoever to counter it, and why it performed so well in a given situation. Once you've thought about that stuff and at a minimum done some surface level basic analysis, at that point, I think you'll have a much better idea of whether something is overpowered or not. And I focused on the Dreadquake Mortar in this video, but this line of thinking can be extrapolated to any number of my videos. Pretty much anytime a unit performs exceptionally well in one of my videos, whether it's on 3rd Age Reforged, or in Total War Warhammer, or back on Attila, there will be at least a handful of people saying it's overpowered, which I just don't think is accurate. And I do understand most of you are just giving your impressions and that first visceral reaction you have, which frankly, I had too. Obviously, seeing an entire Ironbreaker unit disappear in a single artillery strike is crazy to watch, and it's not surprising it elicits that kind of reaction. But I do think sometimes people are too quick to judge balance, too quick to cry OP, and I've been guilty of this myself, and that can result in the wrong changes being made, and be a detriment to the game as a whole. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Nothing serious, but did want to talk about that and share my thoughts. See you guys next time. Indypride, signing out for now.
worship is the gods with it. All will be despoiled. I will rise. Finches boom. The Black Orcs will win. Watcher. Nurgle's pestilent glory. God's bloody glory. Shove us,